So in this video, I wanted to talk about the classic Sony Sports Walkman. Now, when you think back to the 80s and when you think about things that are iconically 80s, this has to be at the top of the list. It seemed to me when I look back at the 80s, almost everybody owned a Sony Sports Walkman. They just seemed to be everywhere. And there were many different models. Sony started releasing the Sports Walkman very early on in the 80s, and throughout that decade they came out with a number of different models. The specific one that I owned was the WM-F35, which you can see on your screen right now. And this was probably one of the best Walkmans I ever owned. I just have such positive memories of this thing. I owned my WM-F35 in the late 80s, and I listened to it well into the 90s. I think this particular model first hit the market around 1987, if I'm not mistaken. Now, this thing featured AM/FM radio. It had a battery power light, and it was supposedly waterproof. That was a claim to fame for a lot of these Sony Sports Walkman, that they were supposed to be waterproof. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that they only were waterproof to a certain degree. They weren't truly 100% waterproof. I don't know. I never really had a chance to test that, but that was certainly sort of the claim to fame that they had. And I remember the sound was so crisp and clear. It just had an amazing clear sound, and the volume was great. It was good and loud, and I always loved that about this Walkman. Now, I also remember this thing was tough. I used this thing a lot when I was in high school, and I remember it dropped on the floor of my high school many times, and it just kept going. It was really that tough. And the floors of my high school were certainly very, very hard. And basically when it hit the floor, you knew it. It made quite a loud sound. And there were numerous times when I dropped it on the floor by accident and I thought, oh no, it's done for. It's going to be broken. I'm going to have to buy a new one. But time and time again, it just kept right on going. Very, very good quality. Now, I mentioned earlier about the distinctive yellow color. And I think pretty much every model in the Sony Sports Walkman line was available in yellow, although I do remember other colors as well. I remember black and red and dark blue. There were a number of other colors as well. I think there was also gray, if I'm not mistaken. And they came with headphones, very specific in-ear headphones, which I loved. And I actually, a while ago, I made a video about these specific headphones, and I'm going to post a link to that at the end of this video. Those Sony in-ear headphones were just great, and I actually still use them. You can still find them on the secondhand market. I don't believe they're still being made brand new, but I've owned a number of pairs of these headphones over the years, and to me, they just sound incredible. Now, there was a nice big window on the body of the Walkman, so you could very clearly see what cassette you had inside. It also had a big clip on it, so you could clip it onto your belt while you walked or while you were walking around your high school, as I used to do. And I remember using rechargeable batteries for this thing. And if I recall correctly, I think I would have to recharge the batteries, I don't know, every 4 to 5 days. But keep in mind, I was a very heavy user. I used to use this Walkman pretty much every day. So it's no surprise that I had to keep recharging the batteries every few days. Now, as far as the cost of this thing, I don't remember the exact cost of the WM-F35. If I recall correctly, even in the late 80s, they were at least $100, maybe even a little bit more than $100, which of course would be much more in today's currency. And I have to say that not long before CD Walkmans came along, this did seem to be the cassette Walkman of choice. It seemed to me that the Sony Walkman was really revered, and many people loved it. Many people owned one and enjoyed using it. And it just seemed to be the cassette Walkman that a lot of other cassette Walkmen aspired to be, but never quite got to that point. Now, am I saying that the Sony Sports Walkman was the greatest Walkman ever made? No, I'm very aware there were others that were probably much higher quality, but this one was definitely very, very good. I remember I took this Walkman on so many trips. I wouldn't dare go on any sort of vacation or any sort of road trip without it. I used it on many walks around my neighborhood, even in my car. And I remember I made loads of mixtapes that I enjoyed listening to in my Sony Sports Walkman. Now, my question for you, did you own this specific model of Sony Sports Walkman? Was there another model that you used? Or were you not a fan of the Sony Sports Walkman? Did you think the Sony Sports Walkman was really overrated? Please feel free to leave a comment. And also, I'm wondering if anybody out there remembers the Sony store. Yes, of course. Many of us at our local mall back in the day, we had a Sony store in the mall. And I had one in my local town, and I loved it. I used to go there all the time. Of course, I was a big fan of Radio Shack, but I think coming in a very close second place would be the Sony store for consumer electronics. I really loved it. I bought most of my blank tapes there. So if you have any memories of the Sony store, please feel free to share it. Thank you for watching. I hope you can join us again next time. Please feel free to leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. And as always, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. It's always greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. We'll see you again next time. Take care. Bye-bye.